And these different kinds of particles, they make texture, which helps things drain, it helps things breathe. And then really you can tell like the health of the soil sometimes just by looking at the color. So we are going to talk about dirt for the next slide. And I'm also going to want to check in with you. So I'll explain the dirt first. So dirt, yeah, it's made of sand, silt, and clay too, and it can be rocky. But often it doesn't have minerals and nutrients or living organisms. So much of what was our soil, right, has now been displaced dirt or displaced soil. There we go, has been displaced soil. And the result of this soil that doesn't have texture, doesn't have structure, doesn't compact when wet, is runoff and erosion, and that creates a whole handful of problems downstream and affects so much animal life, wildlife, affects people's ability to produce food, affects our ability to have active, healthy forests, so many things. So this sentence is kind of extreme. It says dirt is dead and it does not support life. You can't plant a productive garden in dirt. So I'm wondering, I'm going to put this out there to the group. Did y'all bring your soil samples? Does everyone have a soil sample? I'm going to check in. I see some no's. I see some yeses. Any other? Let's see. If you can unmute yourself and let me know, then I'll know how to proceed with this next activity.
I can get a sample real quick.
Me too. Shoot. Sheesh. Poor student.
Hang on just a second. Hang on just a second. Before you leave, what I'll do is I'm just going to continue moving forward. I wanted to do an activity with the soil, but we actually are going to have time for a break. And then when we have time for the break, if you want to get your soil sample, that's okay. Will that work? Okay, awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and move on. We'll move on to the next slide. Okay, this is just talking about some soil composition. I think it's really awesome how much air is in soil, and minerals and water and organic matter. I think something that's fascinating is how little organic matter there is with all of this soil composition. This particular pie graph, this like diagram, this is something that you'll see inside of the curriculum that will help guide a student in an exploration. So we're going to go ahead and move on to that next slide where we talk about what is that 5%, that organic matter. So which one of these do you think is organic matter? Any responses? Which one of these is organic matter? You can say it out loud. You can put it in the chat.
All of them.
Hey, okay, awesome. I know I'm with all of these experts. So yes, all three. And we're doing, that's the soil exploration that I am about to talk to you about right there in the Hillcrest Garden. And it's so fun. Okay, so next slide. Okay, so organic matter. These are different things that it provides for the soil, food, water, shelter, and air. And I think it sounds like everyone here knows about what organic matter is. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next slide. So the essential question for this lesson is, what if we used all the soil in the world? What would the world look like? That is the essential question. So that is the setup for the lesson. And if you're in a classroom, then this would be a really great time to do some brainstorming, to ask students to start giving some ideas about what they think the world would look like if there was no soil. That's my doggy down there. He's like, no more carrot snacks. It's just lots and lots of dirt, and that's kind of sad. We're also gonna just point out one more thing, and that's that, soil takes time. It takes a lot of time to build soil. So this little picture this funny worm is just talking about how it takes 1,000 years to form 1 inch of soil. Which is funny because it says then it would take 80,000 years to grow a basketball player. That's a long time. That's just a long time. And I think it's important just to think about the time differences really and how fast we move, especially right now as humans, and how long it really takes for the Earth's processes to regenerate. 1,000 years for soil. Next one. So, and then the soil is being depleted at 17 times the rate that it's grown. And I bet everybody knows what this process is called. So I'm not gonna, don't pull up the next slide. I would like to hear from someone. What is this process called? The process of depleting soil at 17 times the rate that it's grown. Anybody know that word? It starts with the letter D. And we live in a place where we can see it happening too. What is that word? Any thoughts? There's no wrong answers, just interesting answers. I'm gonna look at the chat.
I think I'm wrong, but I was going to say desoilification.
Hey, but that's pretty close. That is
Okay.
that's pretty close. Is there any other thoughts? I like that you used D. I think we got really close right there. D is right there. The first 3 letters were right there. Okay. No other ideas? No other thought? Oh, okay, there's the word. It popped up. Anybody heard this word before? Desertification.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the word. I think we knew it. It was just hiding behind our ears somewhere or something. But yeah, desertification, it's just the process of soil being depleted so quickly, so much faster than soil can be regenerating. So go ahead and move on to the next slide. All right, so we're just going to talk a little bit about desertification and some reasons, some things that cause it. So overgrazing, monoculture farming practices and deforestation, overuse of water, like fracking uses so much water, so many overuses of water, Coca-Cola production, things like that. It's just pretty intense. And then we have lots of solutions though. So we know what not to do, but we also know what to do. And so all of these methods are things that we can do with our family, with our students. We can compost food waste. Underneath that, it did say pollinator gardens, so I will say that again, pollinator gardens, and then soil building, cover crops, putting mushrooms in the soil, which is really awesome, doing what's called mushroom inoculation, mulching, planting native grasses and drought tolerant trees. So there's lots of things that we can do. Does anyone else have any other ideas about approaches to what we can do to help slow down that desertification process? I can see your mouth moving, Anthony. Did you want to say something?
I had the blessing to go to Costa Rica in 1970. I had just gotten out of the Marine Corps and had a rough time dealing with living in the United States at the time. And at that time, Costa Rica was just beginning to look at their environment. They started their first national parks. And I went with one of the first rangers, and we explored Santa Rosa National Park before it was ever open to the public. They started reforestation projects. At one point, they began to give tax credits for reforestation. And today, Costa Rica has more forest than it did like in the late 1800s. there's a good book. It's called the Quetzal and the Macaw. And it's about two young men who right out of college decided to build a national park system. And they were really the authors of what happened there. And that's a really good book about how to promote the environment, to help protect the environment. And they have a whole set of principles that they worked on. And all of that is in that book. And I believe it's available like on Amazon and like that. I have lost my copy, so I can't bring it out to show you.
And you
But-
call that book Quetzal and the Macaw?
And the Macaw. And the English version is called the Quetzal and the Macaw.
I think I spelled that right. I'm just putting the book in the chat.
And I don't remember who wrote it. So.
Thank you so much for sharing that, though. I always like, I mean, I know that there are stories out there, many stories of people doing really amazing initiatives. I don't know if you, I mean, I'm saying amazing just because I know that we have all of the information, the knowledge that is possible to care for our earth. And it's really great when people do it and they can figure out how to incentivize through policy. And, you know, tax credits that, yes, you know, like this is a great thing, you caring for your environment. And,
Yeah, if
and
you
the effect of
look
it,
at-
you know, replenishing the soil, that's awesome.
If you look at what's happening right now with immigration, it's because the other countries in Central America did not take care of their environment. At the same time, Costa Rica was rebuilding their environment. Other countries were finishing it off. And now the soils won't support the population that's there anymore.
Yeah, definitely agriculture done in certain ways, like that monoculture agriculture can do a lot for depleting the soils, right? Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for sharing, Anthony. Would anyone else like to share about some knowledge they have about desertification or some stories they have about people coming up with solutions for that? And that could be yourself too. Okay, so we'll go ahead and move on. But if you do want to share, you are welcome to. So if our soil is so important, it's important to all of life and it's getting depleted quickly, we have a guiding question now, and that is, how can I help the earth to build soil? How can I help the earth to build soil? So I talked about a few kind of solutions, but like really, what does that look like? Can I make soil? I think that's really the question that is coming up now. And I believe that we have enough time, it looks like, in our, just doing a time check, that we are going to go ahead and show a video that shows the soil exploration that you can also share with your students. And it'll lead you through an activity. So if you move on to the next slide, I think it will show the curriculum. So this is a curriculum from Education Outside, really with the main objective of showing that humans can help the earth to make soil. So it's got lots of different questions, again, because it's inquiry based. So engage, explore, explain, elaborate, evaluate. It's got all these different tiers. If you click on it in the slideshow, it'll open up to the curriculum. You can take a look at it then. We can go ahead and advance to the next slide and then play the video. Oh, now I can see myself.
Give me just a second, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So after we play the video, there'll be some time for a break. So just as a heads up. Oh, it's a little glitchy here.
Your screen, there's an when that little window comes up, there's an option to say share audio on your screen, and I think you need to click that in order to hear the video.
Oh, we might need to restart it. Humans.
I get it. I see it. Let me start it.
Hello. Welcome to my garden on Girard Street. Did you know that 1 teaspoon of soil contains more living organisms than humans on this planet? That's over 6 billion organisms in healthy soil. But what is healthy soil? How do you know if your soil is healthy? What is soil anyway? So these are questions we're going to answer today with our soil exploration. So if you are inside, come outside, join me, and I'm going to guide you through a few activities here in my backyard. Why is soil important? It's just dirt. What would happen if all the soil in the world went away and all we had was dirt? Would it really make a difference? What would the world look like if there was no soil? All right, so for this soil exploration, you will need the following materials: 6 containers of any kind, and either a hand trowel or a spoon. In this case, it's a spork. Para esta exploración de suelo, necesitarás 6 contenedores, cualquier tú quieres, y una paleta de mano y una cuchara. So now that you've gathered your materials, for the first exploration, you will need 3 containers, 3 empty containers. The first one is for organic matter. The second one is for inorganic matter or minerals. And the third one is just in case you don't know what it is. So this is a question mark container. And if you have any questions while you're doing this activity, we'll pass out a worksheet to you that might guide you in figuring out what is what. But wait, are there any things we're not supposed to pick up? So it's really good to be very careful with the kinds of things you pick up. If something has a sharp edge, looks like broken glass or a needle, please tell your teacher, don't pick it up. So just stop what you're doing immediately. If you see something sharp, don't pick it up. Always exercise caution whenever you're doing your exploration. So come on now, let's go and explore. How does this have anything to do with making soil? Well, with all the ingredients that we found, we can try and make soil ourselves. So here is what soil is composed of. So 45% of soil is minerals. So let's pretend we're gonna make soil in this container. So 45% of soil. So I'm gonna say a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I'll put in almost all the rocks I have. And then 25% air. So I'll take this jar that's empty, I'll put that 25% air. And then 25% water. Oh, and my water has a little organic material in it too. 25%, so I'll put a quarter of this container about into my making soil. And now 5%, only 5%? Crazy, that's not very much. So 5% is organic materials. I'm just gonna break up this cardboard and add it to my mix. Maybe I'll add a little stick too. All right, so now I'm gonna mix it all together. cool. That inorganic matter is getting nice and wet. Ooh, lost a little bit. It's all mixing together. It's mixing together, but it's not making soil. Wow, I've been mixing it for a long time now and not much has changed. All right,
Hello,
so you
Sandra.
can pause the video now.
How was the soil shake activity?
Okay, awesome. So we're just gonna stop there because now we have a couple of other demonstrations, and we're also gonna move on to our break. So if you want to grab that soil sample that you were talking about, this is a great time for it. It's a 5-minute bio break. So from right now it's 4:34. So if we can come back at 4:39, 4:40, we will start again, but it is time for our bio break. And yes, please come back with a soil sample, just some soil in any kind of container, any amount that feels good to you.
Texas sun, caressing you from Fort Worth to Amarillo. Come on, roll with me to the sun dips low. Texas sun, blood. Texas sun. When I fall on home, cold blow. Step down somewhere, folks are gone. 'Cause you keep me now, you keep me warm. Wanna feel you warm, can't play that little thing. Texas sun. Texas sun. Texas sun. Texas sun. You say you like the wind blowing through your hair. Come on, roll with me till the sun goes down. Texas sun. Texas sun. Ooh, baby, you're so gorgeous. How about you and me? Take a little trip.
All right. If you're back with us, feel free to turn your camera back on, or otherwise let us know that you're here so we can get started again. Thanks, Vince. Thanks everyone for coming back.
Okay, so I think we're going to move forward into Marissa's section. But before we do, are there any questions or comments or anything like that before we move forward into talking about composting? Hopefully you've got your soil samples. You are going to be using your soil samples. Okay, all right, let's go ahead and move forward. You're on, Marissa.
Awesome. Hello, everyone, again. So to kind of introduce compost, a unit that I was working on with my students was to kind of just break down soil and just, interact with it. So if you have your soil sample ready, I'm going to do kind of a little demonstration of just a really quick activity that is easy to do with just a couple of simple things from the garden space that you're working in. So let me just kind of, so I have my little soil sample here, and the soil test that this soil test is called the ball test and then the ribbon test. So basically, if you want to grab your soil sample and then a little bit of water, the first thing that you do is you take some soil in your hand and you just pour a little bit of water over it. And the goal is to see if you can get it to stick together and make like a small ball. And you just kind of keep adding it and squishing it. The kids really like this because it's really hands-on, and funny enough, the 5th graders were the ones that were really enjoying it because they were basically like, I haven't played in dirt since I was in preschool or kindergarten, and And then they loved it. And then they played in dirt for like 45 minutes and, you know, enjoyed every minute of it. So it was great. So yeah. So if you find yourself kind of not able to really make a ball out of your soil, then it probably means that you have tons of sand, which is probably common. So if you're having a hard time making a ball, if it's really just not sticking together at all, then you have your answer, which means that you have very sandy soil. However, is there anybody that like couldn't make a ball out of their soil sample at all? And I can't really see. So everybody has some semblance of a ball that is able to do this? Not so much? Okay, cool.
I almost think my ball has too much organic matter in it, which
Okay.
is interesting, right? That
Yeah.
because yeah, it's like it's like too mulchy.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's kind of what's going on with mine too. Like, if you can kind of make a ball, but it's very delicate, that probably is the case, that there's a lot of organic matter in there. Or if you have a lot of like big sticks, that'll do it. All right, so for those of you that could make the ball, try to get a little bit more soil in there, and try to make a slightly larger ball if possible. And we're gonna do the ribbon test. Oh, nice. So Randy, do you think that mushroom compost helped your soil stick together? Yeah? Okay, great. Okay, so we got our muddy mess here. So if you get your little compost, if you get your little soil ball here, you're gonna kind of take it with both hands and you're gonna kind of squish it between your index fingers and thumbs and try to make a ribbon. So if you see here, it's kind of coming out. Oh, but once it breaks off, you'll notice either you actually have kind of a long piece of soil all smashed together, or you don't. And typically, if you can only make like a very small ribbon, you're either going to have really sandy, kind of like loam composition, or if you can get kind of a couple inches, you're a little bit more closer to loam. So kind of that ideal ratio of sand, silt, and clay. But if you can get like a really long piece, like 3 inches or so, then you probably have a lot of clay, because it's gonna all that clay is just gonna stick right together and not budge. So so I guess my soil sample actually wasn't bad. It's a little sandy, but it's got a little bit of loam in there. And so what did everybody get? How's your sample looking? Is it looking a little bit closer to clay, sand? Anybody got any loam going on? And I'm gonna rinse off my hands because I can't really like check the chat with. That's the fun part. Oh,
We got some mostly sand from Paula. If anyone else wants to share out, that'd be great. Got sandy loam from Vince. Yeah, I got sandy loam.
yeah.
Like that. Yeah, it's funny doing this and then being on the computer. I need to wash my hands. My like computer got all sandy loamy.
Sandy loamy. Well, thanks for playing, everyone. This is a good like in-person activity that you don't really have to prepare for. You can just kind of like go out into the garden and have the kids dig around and throw some water in there, and it's a grand old time. But the other video, the one that we had sent out yesterday for you all to check out, the soil shake test, is a really cool visual representation of the breakdown of a soil sample from wherever you're gardening at. Did anybody by chance do the soil shake test, or maybe you've done it before, want to share about it? Not, that's okay. Okay, cool. Well, yeah, definitely check out that video. Oh, Bridget, go ahead.
Oh, no, that's okay. I know we have only 20 minutes left, so I'm not going to go into detail, but I did do it. And it is really fun to do. I feel like the instructions on the Life Lab are really great. So if you watch the video and follow it, you'll get something like this. This is my jar. And after I took a look at my jar, which has obviously some clay, has a layer of loam and a lot of sand at the bottom, and a lot of water, lots of water. Then I took my nature journal and I drew in it after writing what that it was a soil shake. Took my journal and then I drew a picture of it, and it was really fun to do. And I was like, yeah, that's really helpful for me, because also that can then help me whenever I decide to plant certain things in the soil. If it's too sandy, I know some things are not going to grow well. I'm really looking for that loamy soil. So, but yes, if anyone wants to share on this, even if you didn't do it today, but you've done it before, I would love to hear that. Okay, so we go ahead and move forward, Marissa. I want you to have your time.
Awesome. So the kind of essential question that we're asking here is, can our trash be turned back into trees? And what I kind of put up on here are some common household trash items that can actually be repurposed into compost, into plant fertilizer. Some pretty common things, vegetables, fruits, coffee grounds, but even like fur, which I didn't know until I was kind of looking into it. And I put some asterisks by some of the paper items, because you do want to make sure that if you are going to be composting paper items, that you don't want to include things that have dyes or other chemicals on them, because if you're composting that, you're putting it into your soil, it's just going to go right back into the plants. And then if you're consuming them, it's going to go into you. And then of course there's kind of the section of things that we shouldn't be composting at home. Not to say that these things can't be composted, but in terms of like meat, bone, skin, like dairy stuff, they require a much higher temperature than we can typically achieve in a home composting bin. Otherwise they get really smelly, of course, and rot, but they also turn into, they create this bacteria that's actually very toxic. So again, if you're putting that in your compost, into your dirt, it could just as easily like harm your plants or harm you. And of course, unless your pets are cows and horses or worms, you don't want to be putting pet waste, because they eat all kinds of weird things that aren't pleasant for compost. If you're composting household plants, you want to be careful that they're not bug infested, because the bugs can live in the plants, and then if you're composting them, you're just basically reintroducing the bugs back into your compost and your plants. And Bridget actually enlightened me to this, that if you are composting what are considered like invasive plants, they can be so resilient that even if you're trying to get rid of them, they will live on through the compost. So just to be wary of that. So what is compost? Compost is broken down organic material, kind of the things that we were talking about in the last slide, as well as others. And by breaking down, they take their nutrients and they put it back into dirt, which creates the soil, the living soil that plants need to live and grow. So I like these little images here because it's kind of showing, especially the top one here, that through decay, the resilient potato is sprouting and growing in the middle of all of the chaos. And then of course our worm friends down there who are essentially eating and pooping and creating all of that good nutrient-rich compost for the plants to use. So thank you, worm friends. We appreciate you. So when we're talking about organic material that is going into compost, there's 2 types, and also each type gives a really important kind of ingredient to the compost. So we have brown materials, they're carbon rich, and the carbon gives energy to the microorganisms that are creating the compost. So brown materials, are the dry, brown colored materials like, dry leaves, sticks, woody material, your dry paper, wood chips, straw. And if you're dealing with manure, the actual dried out manure is considered a brown material as well. And then in terms of green materials, you have all of the fresh fruit scraps, vegetable scraps, eggshells. The hair and fur would fall under that, as well as the fresh manure. And these are nitrogen rich items. So the nitrogen feeds protein to the microorganisms as the other kind of essential component to healthy compost. Next slide, please. So we live in a desert, and being that it is a desert, it's very hot and dry here. So we need more nitrogen, green material than what maybe another more humid climate would need. So if you're going by, like, say you had a measuring cup full of different either brown or green materials, you would want 1.5 to 2 cups of green material to 1 cup of brown material. And that's just going to keep the compost viable and alive and living and breathing and keep it from drying out. Well, oh, they're there. Okay. So I'm wondering if we have time to watch either of these videos.
Let's see your large one.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, well, yeah. The other one, the household. So this is a household composter. Yeah. Now I'm going to show you how to prep a large compost bin. I'm going to use a large bin, like a storage bin. I'm going to drill some holes on the bottom, and it does have an interlocking lid. So I have one to actually put on top, and I have an extra lid that's going to serve to catch water on the bottom. Ta-da! So I did about 12 holes for guidance. Looks quite aesthetically pleasing. Now we can get to the fun part of filling it up. You know what? I would also suggest drilling probably 4 holes on each side. That way the air ventilates through as well. Now I have 3 holes, 4 holes, 3 holes, and 4 holes to help with air ventilation. So again, I'm going to use one lid on the bottom to catch water. Similar to the small composter that we made, you want to put
about 1 or 2 inches of dirt on the bottom of your compost bin to start off. Now you want to add your brown waste. So your dry leaves, sticks, paper, as long as it doesn't have any dyes, because you don't want that in your compost. But yeah, add about a 1 to 2 inch layer of brown waste. Okay, and now you can add your 1 to 2 inch layer of green waste, your scraps, your eggshells, anything like that in between. You're gonna finish off your layer by adding another layer of dirt. And there you have it. You want to keep this preferably outside. Continuously keep it damp. You don't want to wet it so much that it creates mud, but just enough to keep it wet. And only add more water when you see that the dirt starts to crack and dry out. You want to keep this in a place where it stays warm as possible. Try to keep the lid on unless you are adding more compost, dirt, green or brown waste, and then keep the lid on otherwise. And there you have it. Updates to come.
And there you have it. There is a compost bin of your very own that you can put all of your kitchen scraps in. I really hope that you enjoyed this lesson today. Keep me updated on how your compost bins are going. And I can't wait to see all of the good compost, the good dirt that you create for your future gardens. Have a good day. Bye. Yay. So I did see a question in the chat. Paula is asking about pond sludge. I have never dealt with ponds before. Bridget, do you have any insight on pond sludge? I feel like intuitively it sounds like something that could be added. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I think when I hear pond sludge, I think nitrogen. so yeah, you would be adding a lot of nitrogen to your soil and, or your compost. And for me, like the compost so much has to do with smell, like knowing if it's a healthy compost, you can start to smell when it's more sour. Sometimes it has too much nitrogen in it or more funky or almost like rotten eggs kind of smell. So if you're going to use pond sludge, I would just suggest you have a lot of other like carbon kind of matter. But any other folks, it sounds like there's other master composters here in the room too. Would you use pond sludge in your compost?
Well, I will just add that, so moving from the soil tests and kind of the soil exploration, kind of introducing compost as a way to improve soil in the sites that you're already at. So, kind of through my I always like to help students realize that like soil is not something that needs to be bought. And, Bridget and Zuly and I were having a conversation in preparation for this. And Bridget was kind of explaining that, whatever you're buying in bags, that soil is not necessarily, alive. It doesn't have those nutrients. It doesn't have those microorganisms that are there thriving and living and bringing life to it. So yeah, just compost as a way to improve soil without needing to go and buy it. And also as a way to kind of reduce waste, whether it's just classroom based at home or school-wide, as Liana is talking about in the other session.
Awesome. And I just want to clarify, because I mean, I have to buy soil all the time when I'd rather not, but soil does, you know, when you're purchasing it in a bag, oftentimes it is, you know, does have compost in it. Like you can get mushroom compost added to it or other compost. I think I just bought a bag of soil that says that it has added compost. So definitely at times it can have minerals in it as well. And obviously it's great to use for raised beds. It's just really fun and also really powerful to make your own soil. So yeah, I think that that's where we were going with that for a moment. We are now, because we have about 6 minutes left on this presentation, we're just going to go ahead and move on to a question and any kind of questions that you might have on the presentation. And we're also going to move to the next slide that shows a resource page. So Zuly, if you can advance to the resource page, that would be great. So yeah, we're skipping a lot of stuff. One great activity that we skipped really that I enjoy is an activity that I'm giving y'all for worm bin bingo. So fun. So if you have a worm bin at your home or in your school, you can actually do some sorting with students using the worm bin bingo game. Basically, you would call out those worm bin earwig, centipede, roly-poly, those kind of friends, and you know, whoever wins bingo gets a special prize. And it's super fun. It's a great thing to do. You can take it indoors too, and it is, that activity is on this slideshow. Additionally, in terms of resources, the Education Outside curriculum, Education Outside used to work a lot with Life Lab in San Francisco, in California. And so there is that curriculum that is the soil exploration there. There's also Xerces soil scouting worksheet, video on pollinators, video on sheep mulching, and then just 5 videos from around the world on desertification and regenerative agriculture. So I just wanted to have, you know, have a resource list that's also multilingual too. I think it's really cool seeing many different kinds of people doing this work all around the world. When I watch these videos, I'm like, super inspired. So definitely wanted to leave y'all with a resource list. You can move on to the next slide. All right, so let's see. If you still have your soil sample, who has their soil sample still? Does everyone still has their soil sample? Great, I see, let's see. Paula, thank you so much for showing your soil sample. If you were on camera, you can hang out with your soil sample. See who else is with us. So Michelle, Jessica, Terry, awesome, Randy, Vince. If you've got your soil sample with you, we're going to go ahead and do a little closing activity with this. Marissa, are you back? I know you had to do some shuffling around, so I'll wait.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, awesome. So I'm going to ask that you unmute yourself. So everyone unmute yourself. Hopefully we won't hear too much craziness or feedback. This is just going to be just for a moment, okay? So the process of regenerating soil, this is like an ancestral process. People have been doing this work for thousands of years, and we are tapping into that ourselves. With this soil sample that we have here, I want you to really think about that desertification that I was talking about, that 17, the rate of 17 times. We're losing soil at 17 times the amount that we can grow it. And we really want to slow that down. And I think in order to do that, we have to call on our ancestors. So, and I'm saying that because I think that ancestral knowledge, we all have it. We all come from a place. We all have soil as something that connects us. I see ourselves as being of the earth and the earth. So I want you to call in your grandparents, your abuelitas. It's someone that you feel really connected to on the count of 5. for support of regenerating the soil. So before we move on, does everybody get that activity? You can give me like a thumbs up or like a yes.
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 All right, awesome. So I'm just going to count down 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Jamie,
Australia.
awesome. So thank you so much for bringing your ancestors into the space. That's something we'd wanted to do earlier, but we wanted to make sure that you had the soil here. I think it's really important that when we're working in the soil, we keep remembering that we're connecting with the people that we came from before, and that we're doing this for generations and generations to come after us. So thank you so much. It's so awesome that you stayed with us today. And again, I'm opening up for questions. I know we're at 5:09, but feel free to ask any questions about what was presented today.
Hi, this is Kara, and I'm not totally clear about what we were supposed to feel when you describe a ribbon of the soil. I'm not sure if you kind of roll it into a little skinnier stick kind of form, but what exactly did you mean?
Yeah, so the kind of rolling it into a stick is an option, but you know, typically when you have kind of like that little ball of soil, if you're like pinching it in between your index fingers and thumbs, pretty soon it'll kind of start to push up on its own, especially if it has like a lot of clay in it, it'll stick together. But if it's like falling apart, then you probably have more sand or more organic material, especially like bigger sticks or whatever, or and usually if there's like loam, so if it has like good composition, it will stick together at least a little bit. But yeah, if it's like falling apart, then it's probably just mostly sand. Yeah, but yeah, you can even roll it into like a little snake too. That sometimes that's easier for people or for students, especially the little ones that can't quite do the ribbons. So
What does yours look like, Kara? Do you have it?
I do. It's sort of all over my computer mouse, but whatever. It's fun. It's good. It's good. It's much more interesting here at my computer. So it's kind of, I don't know if you can see, it's, that's what I've just sort of pinched off now. I don't know, can you see?
Mm-hmm. Cool, so that did it. So it's got some clay that's allowing it to hold together.
Here in the North Valley, I think there's a lot of, I think we've got a lot of clay, so. Awesome. Thank you.
Did that answer your question? What Marissa was? Okay.